it's Ben Wise, ZOAR Fitness, and this is the name game. Workout number 15, this is pounds stone. AMRAP, 14 minutes. 14 dumbbell snatch at 50, 35 pounds. 50 or 35 pounds for men or women. 14 dumbbell overhead squats, same weight. And 14 box jumps at 24 or 20 inches respectively. All right, our movement standards. The dumbbell snatch. Both heads of the dumbbell, it's a single dumbbell, have to touch the ground at the same time. And then you have to lock out overhead, with everything being stacked. That's pretty simple. However, the one thing that is maybe slightly different, you have to transition below the crown of your head. So like this would be the very top of your head. Your hand has to be below that point. So in other words, you can't drop it from here or have your other hand go up and grab it from here and bring it down. You have to lower it or potentially drop it from here and then catch either in front of your face, or you could bring it to your shoulder, rotate here, or you could alternate on the ground. Which I wouldn't recommend if you're planning on cycling these reps. For most people, I would say like bring it right to here and then kind of drop it into your hand as you look at your hand in front of your face is the easiest way to make that work. I think that the open will probably use that standard just so people don't get injured by dropping a dumbbell on their head, because when 300,000 people do a single workout, that's probably going to happen to someone. I don't think it'll happen to you, but we're gonna abide by the rules. Overhead squat. This is gonna be the challenging one for a lot of people to keep it locked out and to also reach depth on the reps. So for a lot of people, they're gonna get into like a forward knee position where instead of having it like your shin be pretty vertical like this, it's going to get pushed all the way forward and they're gonna be up on their toes like this. And then even if I'm like, my knee's pretty flexed here, but I'm nowhere close where this is not depth yet, right? Even though that like I'd be pretty close to the ground, I'd probably travel a pretty far distance. This isn't depth. But without necessarily, like if you watch my upper body, I'm not gonna drop it all. But if I get to a more vertical shin position, now this knee's literally higher without this hip going down even lower. So it's easier for me to reach that position. So my point is, if you're someone who's getting really into your toes and having a lot of forward knee travel, and using your quads a lot, it's going to be harder for you to reach that standard. So solution is to move better over the long term and just do your mobility before this actually starts in the short term. So in terms of the actual movement standards for the overhead squat, your fist has to stay above your head. So just like the transition period has to happen below that for the dumbbell snatch, your fist has to stay above that. Like if you're coming down to the shoulder, that's a front squat, like a single arm front squat. It's not an overhead squat anymore. So even if you're someone who's really struggling for that position and you can't get it completely locked out straight overhead, you have to keep your fist above your head. And for both the dumbbell snatch and the dumbbell overhead squat, you can change your hands however you want to change them. So if you wanted to switch every rep, you can do that. If you wanted to do all 14 on your left arm, you can do that. Right? I'm not recommending it, and we'll talk about that in a second, but that's the standard. And then the box jump, you have to jump up, you can't step up, and you have to hit full extension at the top, so actually open up your hips fully at the top and not just kind of pop back down and not keep a closed off hip. You can step down. You have to jump up, you can step down. All right, so equipment setup, it's technically a triplet, but you have a dumbbell and a box, so in that way it's sort of a couplet where it's just a dumbbell and a box. So set your dumbbell next to your box, but don't put it so close to you that you're gonna risk tripping on it or where you have to move it out of the way. It's not that big of a deal to take an extra step in a 14-minute workout, so be safe. So really quickly, I wanna go back to switching hands in the movements. So again, you can switch hands however you want. So this could be for some people where you're doing maybe 7 reps with your left hand and then switching to your right. If you don't feel super comfortable switching hands a lot because you don't really like that new standard or you just haven't had a lot of exposure to dumbbell snatches, that could be an option. For myself, I will probably alternate because I've done a ton of alternating, like every single rep alternating, like left, right, in workouts. So I feel super comfortable with that, and I've kind of held myself to that standard. Sometimes I don't do it all the time, but sometimes I'll do that, so I feel fairly comfortable with that. So I'll probably switch every single rep. But for most people, they're going to want to switch their hands less when it comes to the overhead squat. So you're holding a locked out position now. It's not comfortable for you, or not as practical for you to switch hands all the time. It's going to involve sort of an awkward transition period, where either you could have your hand up and like literally kind of throw it to the other hand, or hand it off, or you can bring it down to your shoulder and switch hands and then go back up. If you want to avoid that completely, you could do 14 on your left hand on round 1, 14 on your right hand on round 2, and you could continue to do that. Or like I said, you could switch it any number of ways where you're going back and forth between the two. I want you to switch your hands evenly. So get the same amount of reps on both hands. Just because your left shoulder feels more mobile, don't do all of your reps on that shoulder. This is more, it's like, yes, this is a quasi-competitive environment where you are trying to get the best score possible, and it's sort of like a test. However, we're training, and that's kind of the bottom line, is that this isn't the actual game day. So develop skills, don't just optimize right now. That's the goal. So I think this workout really comes down to the overhead squat for most people, because everyone at this point, if you were one of my athletes, has done dumbbell snatches, and you should be decent at them at this point, and everyone can basically hit that box jump at this point. So cycle speed and comfort, and the ability for you to have minimal tension, and the ability to be able to breathe in that dumbbell overhead squat is going to be the biggest separator in this workout by far. So things that you can do to improve that. I'm not saying to overlook the other movements, but obviously for most people, it's going to be the dumbbell overhead squat that's the least comfortable, unless you're a mobile, super mobile person where that's a comfortable position. So things that you can do to get better mobility. Yes, you're going to obviously do things in your warm-up, like immediately before the workout, to improve this, but you can also do a lot in the hours prior. And this would say, like, starting like 48 hours beforehand, you can really start to like now, basically when this workout gets released, you can start mobilizing and working on some of the target areas that you know are going to help basically improve that overhead squat, and that's going to allow you to have a little bit more comfort and cycle speed and less tension out of position when you actually do this workout. So the night before, do some mobility work. The morning of, if you're testing like the PM, do some mobility work, and then in your warm-up, do some mobility work. So things that I will be hitting on, first of all, is the better you can squat with an upright torso, that's reducing your shoulder demand. So if you're able to be completely upright in that position, your shoulder can basically just be like you're standing and holding a dumbbell overhead. Whereas if you're someone who's like your torso's inclined forward, you're going to either have to have like a crazy amount of shoulder flexion and or rotation to be able to maintain that, or thoracic rotation to be able to maintain that position. So the more upright your squat can be, or your torso in that squat can be, the less it's going to demand of your shoulders. So that's two things. It's like being able to get between your feet is kind of how I explain it. So basically, like, more mobile hips allow your hips to go straight down instead of back behind you, which allows for an upright torso. And then obviously ankle mobility can allow further tracking forward of your knees and get you into a more upright torso position in that bottom, while maintaining your heels grounded. So obviously that can help. The other things are, the good thing about a single implement overhead squat is that you can rotate a little bit through your thoracic spine to cheat this shoulder back and be a little bit more open with it. So that's one thing, is that you can start to work on thoracic rotation, so actually being able to turn with your upper body and pull that scap back in, obviously, that shoulder flexion, so being able to open up your shoulders more is going to be helpful. So other thing besides the thoracic rotation is that if I'm holding this dumbbell in my right hand like this, I'm not just rotating, but I can reach this hand as far forward as possible, and that puts more of my body weight in front of my center of mass, which allows me to sit back a little bit more in that position, which makes this position just a little more comfortable. So the opposite hand, for me, whichever side I'm gonna go on, I'm probably gonna do like an air squat, where as I come up, that hand's gonna drop, and then as I descend in the bottom of my squat, I'm gonna have that hand come up, and I'm reaching as far forward in like this kind of position. And likely for myself as well, because that's a really challenging position still, even with all those kind of tweaks and hacks, is gonna be how I'm holding the dumbbell. So for a lot of people, they're gonna, or if someone's super mobile, they're gonna be able to hold the dumbbell just like this, and it's gonna be perfectly stacked, and everything is, like, I'm pretending like this with my head, and everything's gonna be in alignment like this, like you finish a dumbbell snatch. However, realistically, for a lot of people, that's not going to happen, where that dumbbell's going to start to rotate, their shoulder's going to unwind, and you're going to get in sort of a weird position. What I like to do is hold, so if the dumbbell has two heads, I like to hold all the way up against this end of the handle, and then I kind of cock my wrists like that, where the bulk of the weight of the dumbbell's significantly behind my wrist. So it's kind of behind my head at this point. I have a video explaining this a little bit more in depth. I'll put it in the comments below so that you actually can see that and understand it a little bit better. So go check out that video. But that wrist position definitely helps cheat that weight just a little bit further behind your center of mass, which makes it a little bit easier. Just like reaching forward with that hand makes that a little bit easier. Last consideration is that you might be able to wear lifters for this workout. Depending, I would say don't do like rebounding box jumps and lifters, just because they're super hard and like rigid. But if you're gonna step down your box jumps, which isn't gonna slow you down very much, yeah, you could probably wear lifters for this workout. Besides that, yeah, just do your mobility before you actually get into this one. Yeah, we're almost in the comments below. And for those of you who are not signed up for the protocol, which is our online training program, go to zoarfitness.com/pro-trial, and you can get a 7-day free trial. Yeah, so go sign up for that. Good luck on Pounds Stone.